How you going, everyone? Coach Jono here for episode 21 of Self-Reflection Sunday, and my very special guest, my dad, James Alcock.
Hi folks.
How are you today?
Good.
Dad's come up to help me move to Brisbane. Just thought he'd pop on up. Was it 1,600 k's?
15.
1,500 k's from South Australia. Just thought he'd duck on up.
I was in the neighbourhood.
In the neighbourhood. He was in the neighbourhood. He was in the country. Hey, Ellen, thanks for joining. And so I just thought it's not that often that he comes on up, unless I move, which is quite often, it would seem. I thought I would just ask him a few questions while I got the man here. So, of course, he is currently the chief moustache in the Alcock family. Not that you can tell because he's got a shitty beard. Looks like a bit like Bill, his older brother. But how long have you had the moustache?
I grew it when I was an apprentice in the early 70s because I couldn't grow it before then.
Really?
Before I was about 18, I think I could produce a bit of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when it started.
Mm-hmm. And why did you decide to grow the moustache?
I had this illusion that it improved my looks, but I don't think it did.
No, but you look pretty odd without it. So
Well, when you get used to something and you like a moustache and you take it off, it does look unusual for a while. But I mean, it's not that it's.
No, you look like a freak. I remember it quite vividly. I've only seen him twice without it. Once when I was about 4, and then once 2 years ago, 2016.
We did the Mo show.
Yeah. The Mo. You shaved it off. I didn't.
No, he sold.
We didn't raise the money.
Well,
we didn't raise the money.
But I think you had to. I mean,
No.
That's
You
all right.
set a target.
Fine.
Set a target.
Moving on.
So I've spoken to my mum, my sister, to think of some stories while we're here. Think of some funny stories about us two. And I was discussing it with him before, and I don't know whether many stories are very appropriate because he remembers them very differently, and they don't shed a very good light on myself. But I always find it very interesting, and when I tell other people, they find it very interesting. But what do you do for a crust, Dad?
I'm a leather worker, and I originally started in the equestrian world in 1971. I was an apprentice saddler and harness maker, and in those days, the equestrian world was there was quite a lot of manufacturing going on. So I was employed to make a lot of horse gear, dog gear, and since then it's changed, but I'm making a lot more variety of things now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's even domestic things, like I call domestic things belts and bags and phone holders and laptop bags, and still doing the equestrian gear, but a lot more domestic product range, I'd say. But
And how did you get into that? How did you get into saddlery, leatherwork?
my parents lived on a dairy farm when I was a kid, and I wanted a pony, which was unusual for a boy in that era. My father bought me a pony, and
Not a horse?
bought a horse first, yes, sorry, and then he got me another
Pony's a
pony.
bit girly.
Well, I was only a little kid. Kids have ponies, adults have horses. But anyway, we won't go on that subject. And our farm wasn't big enough, so I had to get a job, and I took an interest in the leather business, so I became an apprentice, and the rest is history, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were awarded the Winston Churchill Fellowship.
I applied for one, yes.
Oh, yeah, when you got it.
I got one in 1979 to travel to England, and I worked in England for 6 months as a saddler, and I found a manufacturer down the road that was a harness maker, and I worked there Saturdays and half a Sunday, so I had a 5-day-a-week job making saddles and a day and a half a week making harness.
So that was almost 40 years ago, it's 1979.
1979, yes, and it was a great experience.
You got any tips for me? I'm going over there next week.
Yes, well, you've got to be careful, and there's an old saying my old instructor said, if I can remember it. Let your eye be your guide, your pocket your pride, and the money the last thing you part with. About that. I remember that. I had an old man years ago who helped me for years, Kenny Howard, and he had these sayings, and that was his favourite one. He would have a few beers, and he'd come out with these English sayings. He was a third generation harness maker, and he had all these sayings. In that era, that it was a different world, but he had all of these sayings about that sort of thing. Let your eye be your guide, your pocket your pride, and your money the last thing you part with. And that's what he used to remind me of that. It's a way of life, but you're not be too conservative, you know.
Yeah. And you played polo for many years.
I tried. The reason behind that was
Prince Harry's in town. He plays a bit of polo. He has a whack around.
Your grandfather, my father, became the groundsman at the Virginia Polo Ground
in South Australia.
And in 1976, 77, and I went and stayed there for a while. And the captain of the club, Hugh McLaughlin, said, "Do you ride, mate?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I ride a bit." He said, "Do you want to have a go?" And I said, "Oh, it's an expensive exercise." He said, "Oh, we'll look after you." And he didn't. But anyway, we had a go for 4 years. Well, yeah, I mean, you couldn't.
Because don't you have to have like a few horses?
Well, my mate Murray, who lived over the road, we finished up having 5 horses each and then employing a girl at one stage the last 2 years. So I played for 4 years, but the safest thing there was the ball, polo ball.
Yeah, that's always good.
It's a bit of humour there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was a very short career because a very expensive sport. Although we went from playing polo to driving teams of horses, and so we went the old out of the fire into the frying pan routine.
And you did hunts as well, didn't you?
We hunted with Adelaide for a year.
And that's a bit. That's nowadays a bit.
No, well, you see, yes.
Because I remember going. I remember going to a hunt one time. I don't remember much of it because obviously you were off hunting, doing whatever.
Well, it's reenacting, but anyway, yes.
But all I remember is this lady who had the hounds, and she was trying to get the hounds onto the truck, and there was like 40, and there was dogs everywhere.
No,
and
they're not dogs, mate. They're hounds.
Sorry, there was hounds everywhere, and it was like herding cats, all hounds.
Well,
she was trying to get them on, and I thought it was hilarious. At the time.
It is a struggle, but I mean,
she's trying to get them on this truck, and
I'm sure she did.
Well, eventually, but she was not happy.
I know, but after a day out in the hunt field, and you've got the hounds to. You see, most of it's reenactment. They follow a scent. Occasionally, they go real fox hunting out in some ordinary country. If you've got a big paddock, you can let them go. And
so you say reenactment. You would just ride around pretending.
Well, what they do is they set a scent. So somebody rides in advance of the hounds with a boot that's got aniseed on it. Now that leaves a trail. The hounds will follow that aniseed trail. So you can ride wherever you want to, and they will follow. So it's reenacting, as if they were following a fox. You see. So the scent runner goes out quarter of an hour before you do. Then they let the hounds go. He stops, you catch up, and he goes again. So you can follow because we build jumps to logs and things to jump. The problem is that if you follow a fox, you can go anywhere, and you go over barbed wire fences.
They don't follow the jumps.
No, they don't follow the jumps. Funny about that.
And so inconvenient.
Well, you've got to have you're riding animals that will go anywhere, and that doesn't happen a lot today because
it's dangerous. Is that the most efficient way to get a fox?
No, it's in a traditional way. It's a sport. You see, the safest thing was the fox. The fox was very
sounds
clever.
Like in horse riding in the horse world.
Yes.
There's a lot of safe things other than you, the horse.
Yes, there are. The foxes are very clever, and not a lot of foxes get caught.
Well, not that if they're not that clever if they get caught.
No, exactly. So again, looks like the polo ball. It's like a lot of things. The safest thing is the thing that's being hunted, because sometimes we're not very good at it.
And speaking of hounds, that sort of segues into the next part. You had a bit of a go at training sheepdogs.
As you know, on our property, we had a few sheep, and I did a bit.
I know, yes, they don't.
Well, I'm getting to that. I worked a bit part-time, as you know, for a fellow down the road called David, and he's a Kelpie breeder, and part of the employment was to work sheep, and he encourages us, you and I both, me mainly, but to participate in Kelpies, and we had a couple of handy dogs, and
Mine wasn't handy though.
oh,
Shadow.
you did, yeah, well you did, because
Well, once
David
it was out of my
very,
hands.
very nicely gave John some pups, a couple of pups early on, and it's a big job training a pup, and so it didn't always go well, but
If only there was a podcast of someone talking about how to train dogs.
well, there is.
Is it?
There's hundreds of them, yeah.
Is there a real? I know a real good one.
Yeah, and that leads into
It's Josh's.
Josh's, yeah,
It's
good old Josh.
But,
Anyway, the best, I don't know if you ever went to, I just found out the other day, a fellow by the name of Prince, who was the world's, or Australia's greatest dog trainer, died a while back. He was one of David's mates, and I went to a couple of his schools at David's.
Is that the one where Jack ran off?
Could have done. He was a funny fella, this Prince. Well, he was an eccentric. I mean, he was a great dog trainer.
Well, I think dog trainers are all a bit.
I had we'd have a stick, and I had a white one, and he thought I had a blind dog because I had a white cane, and he kept shiking me about this dog.
Why? Well, why did you have a white stick? It's just what you
just
had.
what I had, you know. I mean, it was a bit of everyone had a bit of. There were orange polly and black polly, and I found a bit of white stuff, and I said, and he said, "This is your dog."
Well, it sounds like he's got a bit of a sense of humour.
Exactly.
Maybe you gotta lighten up. You know?
A blind dog. So.
Why aren't you supposed to be blind if you've got the stick?
Exactly.
But anyway. I remember this very well. I felt like this was probably one of the funniest stories I remember of you, and you don't like it, but I think it's hilarious. It's when you just had Jack. I remember he took a while to get around.
He did, yeah.
He took a very long time, and I think a lot of people said like they would have given up.
Well, Princey did. He came back to the second school. He said, "You still got that dog?" He said, "I."
But he turned out to be really bloody good.
He was a handy little dog. Yeah.
Well, he was. He was very good at the end.
Yeah.
But so for the people that haven't been to it, so this Prince guy is a Prince.
Yeah.
So he came into school, and there was what? There was 20 farmers there.
No,
with
10. Yeah, you can't have 20. It's too many people. But the 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so obviously
right.
there was 10 people, 10 dogs.
So we had Jack there at the first one, and then 6 months later he came back again. And he said, "I wouldn't have given that dog time."
And so we went into the round yard, and that's where you use a rake
to block the dog.
Yeah, to block the dog, and that's how you get them. Because so I always get them confused. Which way is which?
Often, it doesn't matter anyway. Over and back, yeah.
Over and back.
So you've got to block the dog to. You've got to be opposite the sheep. I mean, it's a very interesting way of training sheep.
And so you send the dog one way, and it pushes them up. Then you've got to send them the other way, so it sort of shimmies them forward.
That's right. You've got to have you're training the obedience of the dog, and so the rake blocks the area, so the dog comes up.
And so Jack did all right there. We got happy there. We were like, yeah, cool, all right, we got that. So then we moved from there, and so there was the sheep. They were very trained sheep because that's all they did. That's their life was.
They're dog sheep.
They're dog sheep because they were pretty old and pretty long in the tooth.
They teach pups because they do things right.
Yeah, because they knew what to do. Sheep are inherently dumb, but these ones kind of knew the routine.
Well, they were there for a long time.
And so then we went out into the paddock, and I remember Jack being very.
Inexperienced?
No. He was just very keen, I would say, or maybe some people might say aggressive. And so you went out to a bit of a paddock, and we're all watching. So there's 10 farmers, 10 dogs, and we're all watching. And you start to do the thing, and one sheep bolts, and Jack's just like, not on my watch. And he goes for it. And then Dad's running, and I just remember it so well. And you're, Jack! And you're swinging your arms, and in front of everyone's kind of like, oh, this is a bit embarrassing. Well, and Princey's like, oh. And you're like, oh my God, Jack! And then he caught that sheep. He caught that fucking sheep. And on the face, he bit it, and then it was bleeding. And he came back, and he thought he'd done the greatest thing in the world, because obviously he's like, hey, I got that sheep, and you were not happy with him. You were not happy with him. I just remember
just a little glitch in the training process.
But after that, he became very good. He became very good. I remember.
Right. Yeah.
The only problem was, because you called him Jack, one of the commands is back, so sometimes he got a little bit confused.
A bit confused, yeah.
And then you worked with Mac, which was another dog, and Mac, back, Jack, what?
Yeah, but it's interesting on naming dogs because they can.
Cedric's a good name.
Terminology, they can conflict and get confused, people and dogs. Yeah,
Cedric wouldn't get confused. He's currently looking after Cedric. You taught him to chase sheep yet?
No. No, Cedric's going to be a bit steady on that. So
Well, you got to get him in the round yard. Get the rake out.
we've given all that up, John. We're moving on to semi-retirement
Semi-retirement.
and
So,
retirement.
wow, what are you going to do then?
Not a lot. Travel.
Where to? You've been. So I remember when you talked about, because you've been to Europe. You when you went over on the Churchill, to go back a bit, when you went on the Churchill Fellowship, you went to England and then you travelled afterwards, didn't you?
Well, I went back the year later, and then I went back in '85, where your mother was over there
Yes,
too.
I remember that
She
time.
was in
Chasing. You were chasing old mum.
chasing's a pretty strong word, but yes.
Well, why'd you go then?
We were friends.
Well, would you have any other reason to be over there?
Well, I'd been twice before, so yes, I could have had other reasons.
Seems like pretty. I'm no mathematician, but I'm put two and two together.
Yes.
Worked out pretty well. You got.
Yes. Well, we can. We won't perhaps go on with that one.
You beauty. You got any funny stories you remember of me, or?
No. That
They're not
life's
appropriate.
funny enough, and we're here. So I mean.
I asked Mum, I asked Dad, I asked my sister, and obviously they're all very similar because they don't remember anything. I remember these great stories, and they say that they didn't happen. So they make me feel like I'm a bit crazy, and it makes me wonder if I am adopted or not because you can't remember. But I wrote some notes down. But the big thing is you own your own business, and that's obviously something that I try to follow in the the footsteps of. So you've got the leather shed, and I made a video for him. Not that I'm holding a grudge or anything, but I made a video for him. It's got more views than any of my videos ever have combined.
That's 200 something, mate.
Yeah, well, other than my Tony Robbins one has got 10,000 views
Has it?
now. Yeah,
Oh,
I
gosh.
paid to get it there. But
I was going to say.
I think that's pretty much everything. Surf lifesaver, you're a strong swimmer.
Well, I did a bit of swimming in the. Yeah, the thing is that when I was a child, a young person, we lived at Yankalilla and Parawa, and we went to the beach, and it was the real, like in the sea, which a lot of people, suburban
Unless there's
people.
another sort of beach. Or,
Sorry.
unless there's another sort of beach. Or,
Well, yeah, there is. There's lots of beaches around Australia, but yeah, we learned to swim in the surf and the sea, whereas a lot of people in pools and.
like me in a pool.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's a different concept, really. I think it's.
I don't like the ocean really.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's
So I
different.
didn't grow up on it. I don't like it so much.
Not that we did. We were 20 miles from the beach, but I mean, we went
we were
occasionally.
130 k's from the beach.
Yes. Well, not. Yeah, I suppose it was. Yeah. But it's a different. You either got to be a beachy or a river person or a pool person if you want to participate in water. You know.
Well, I like mountain biking. So
That's not a water. No, it's not a water. So.
No.
There's nothing wrong with not liking water, but it can save your life sometimes if you.
Well, not if you don't go near it.
But a lot of the world has got water on it, hasn't it?
You
gonna
don't go to those places.
Yeah, I know, but you're going to go over it.
Well, hopefully they don't crash. Jeez, thanks for ruining that trip.
Righto.
All right. Well, I think that's about it. You
Okay.
got any finishing points?
No, not really. I'm going to go to Brisbane now.
He's going off to Brisbane.
Take some gear for.
Yeah, for me. If you, I'd suggest fix your headband, Jimmy. Yeah, that's what Aiden says. Thank you, Aiden, for the pickup. If anyone wants to follow him on Facebook, I think it's quite funny to watch him follow him on Facebook. He puts up a lot of harness stuff. So it's just James Alcock. So I'm pretty sure he's my friend, so you can we're mates. So yeah, it's touch and go sometimes. He's already yelled at me about 3 times today. But yes, I'd suggest go follow him on Facebook and add him on Facebook because he's okay.
Well, if we can help you in the future in the leather job, we'll just give us a buzz and.
Aiden says best father-in-law I've had. Well,
it's the only one.
Yeah, well,
it doesn't.
We can find another one if you want. If you want to get rid of your wife, we can bugger the wife off.
Best daughter we've ever had, and son.
That's me. Best child, me. Yeah,
no, son and daughter. Yeah.
No, cop out.
You've got to be careful.
That's a cop out.
Anyway.
Well, sister, I probably could have better sisters, but it's another story. Brother-in-law, he's a bit tall, but
there's a criticism.
He doesn't play football very well. He maybe should try a bit.
You and me, bud.
All right, well that's everything. We'll leave it there. So thanks for watching, team. Hopefully you appreciated the special guest. Sorry it wasn't Prince Harry, like I said, the orange headband, the orange hair, it doesn't really suit. So I got to
An orange here.
Aiden saying I'm adopted, so I don't know how you'd know, Aiden.
They're going to start travelling soon.
I've already been to Bali.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, move on.
Okay, all right. That's it. That's all,
next time.
folks.
Bye.
Yeah, see ya.